Hello, my friends. This is a new show, a show called Astrological Voyages. And I would like first to thank very much ISAR, the International Society for Astrological Research, for giving me this opportunity. In this specific podcast, in this live podcast through Facebook, we are going to talk about various and very important matters. We are going to talk about ancient techniques, medieval techniques, modern techniques. We are going to discover together things that are very interesting, and we are going to understand in a much better way how astrology is so rich and how we can do things in our natal chart. Also, in Astrological Voyages, you are going to have your own voice. I want your questions, I want your opinion, and I want things that you would like in the future to be discussed. But you are not going only to see me. You're not going to see me, just me in the Astrological Voyages show. No. You are going to see many astrologers that I'm going to invite, and you can ask them your own self about what is important for you or about various questions you may have. I'm Christos Sarkos, and I'm an astrologer and psychologist from Athens, Greece. I'm the VP for ISAR in Greece, and I'm working since 2004, although I'm practicing astrology since 1995. My interest is astrology, psychology, psychological astrology, Hellenistic astrology, Babylonian astrology, but also the medieval techniques. My point of view is that astrology is unique and it is one united thing. We may try to separate astrology to different branches, but astrology is one, and we can use all of these great techniques from the past till today in order to understand ourselves but also the cosmos, the world around us. It is of great importance to understand how everything works and how astrology can really help us in the 21st century. So I'm very happy that I'm with you, and again I'm very honored for the trust ISAR gave me to do this, for the opportunity to do this specific podcast. We are now first going to talk about this incredible and incredible phenomenon of having this autumn equinox. And I think we have to look a further look about how this autumn equinox works. First, we need to understand that this sun that just enters Libra is having an opposition with Chiron. Usually, this opposition with Chiron seems that there may be a wound or a great problem in our everyday conversations and relationships. What happens in theory in the chart of the autumn equinox is going to affect us for the next 3 months. That means that for the whole autumn, this opposition between Sun and Chiron is going to affect us in many ways. If you belong to the sign of Aries, of Cancer, Libra and Capricorn, especially around the first decade, you are going to feel this kind of strong opposition between Sun and Chiron. Perhaps a wound from the past, something that needs to be healed, or something of greater importance will come to your life. But it's not just this opposition that is of great importance. We know very well that this autumn equinox holds a T-square. We have this Venus having a conjunction with Mercury, and at the same time we have this Saturn-Pluto opposition with Moon and North Node. We all know, of course, that this T-square is not very easy. Although Venus is in her rulership sign, we know that this kind of T-square is very strong and the power it's going to unleash is very intense. What is of great importance is to understand that perhaps we are going to have problems with our personal relationships and in the way we try to find harmony in ourselves, but what is also very important is that this opposition between Saturn, Moon, North Node and Pluto is going to affect a lot the nations, and we are going to have a lot of problems in various international relationships. And I think that the main problem of this autumn equinox is that we are going to have severe problems between the relationship of the countries. But it's not just that. We know that Venus is on her rulership sign, Moon is also in her rulership sign, and we have also Saturn be on his rulership sign. So we're having three important planets being in very strong positions, something that may seem as a small conflict may in the future become even bigger. And the major problem is that if we look at the planets according to their latitude, they are very close to the Sun. And we know that when planets are very close to the latitude, those aspects that the planets form are usually very powerful. Every planet of the 10 we are using is around 1 degree north or south of the Sun according to latitude. Only Neptune and Venus are about 1 degree and 10, 1 degree and 15. And we know that when the planets are very close to the Sun, according to the latitude, those aspects are very powerful. And this is one of the reasons why we are always saying that this Saturn-Pluto conjunction that we are going to see in this January 2020 is going to be very powerful and is going to affect a lot the people. On the other side, we can see that there is a triple parallel in the declination chart. We can see that there is a Jupiter, Saturn and Pluto parallel and the contra-parallel with Moon in North Node. So we can see that there is a great polarity, and it's not just an opposition between Saturn, Pluto, Venus and North Node. We have a multiple eclipse in this autumn equinox between Saturn, Jupiter, Moon and North Node. This means that this opposition is very strong and is going to affect us a lot. Again, if you have planets in 9th, 10, 11th, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and then to 20 and 21st of Aries, Cancer, Libra and Capricorn, you are going to feel this tense energy that is going to affect you in your life for the next 3 months, and this is going to be big. We know that. While Moon in this chart is very powerful, is having a lot of disharmony in her aspects, but also is going to be, it is very afflicted by the other planets. That means that usually Moon has to do with people. And when we're talking about people, that may seem that the population of a lot of countries is going to have lots of problems. And you may even found that a lot of people may feel that they are not happy with their country, or that for some reason they may feel that something is not really working. That which is also that of great importance of when we're looking at countries is going to have a lot of problems situation. And you may even one great thing when we are looking that a lot of people may feel that they are not happy with their country, or that for some reason they may feel that something is not really working. Many that is also that of great importance when we're looking at countries is going to have lots of problems situation. And so Uranus is one great thing when we are looking at a lot of people may feel that they are not happy with their country. Of course we all know that for some reason they may feel that something is not in our many that is also whatever great information when we are not people are going to have a happy situation. And so Uranus is one great thing when we are looking at people may feel is that Uranus is, of course we all know that for some reason they and we are going to have something is not in our many wishes and whatever great information when we are not people are going to have a happy situation. And so Uranus is one great thing that some people special is that Uranus is, of course we all know that for some reason and we are going to have something is not in our many wishes also whatever great information and we are not people are going to have a happy situation. So again, one great thing that some people special is that Uranus is, of course we all know that for some reason and also we all know that something is not in our many wishes also whatever great information and we are not people are going to have a happy situation. So again, one great thing that some people special is that Uranus some reason also we all know that something is not in our many wishes.
It. Let me see now. Samuel, do you hear multiple audio right now? Do you hear me well? Are there any multiple voices again? I would like to tell me, people, and whoever hears me. Everything is fine right now? Or you can hear me multiple times? Those voices have stopped. Okay, then we are ready to continue. Okay, at least I found the reason why this was happening. Okay, so we can continue and saying that this Uranus being unexpected means that probably is going to bring a lot of financial tensions to our everyday life, and also there is always a problem in dealing with our financial matters and our everyday lives. And this is something that people that are Taurus, Scorpio and Leo and Aquarius of the first decade, having planets around the 4th, the 5th and the 6th degree of this chart, may bring a lot of tension to your life. But also Uranus is always a power of liberation, and this is going to be a great opportunity for you to succeed in your own dreams, or try and fight for your life and be independent and be powerful. So at the same time, this Uranus may bring some problems in the financial matters, but on the other hand, it may bring a lot of great opportunities for you to be independent in your life. Uranus being unexpected is like your subconscious is working rapidly for you to become independent, and sometimes these actions of being independent may be very rough or very difficult, and this may bring some tensions to your everyday life. But at the other side, there is always the need to feel and breathe and be more free in your life, and also have the ability to work hard about your emotions, about who you are, what you're going to do. Sometimes this Uranus is really pushing things, but at the end is always the importance of getting yourself and understand what you really want in your life, something that is always of great importance. But we must not forget that while Sun enters Libra, at the same time Chiron is having this opposition with the Sun. And when we have this Chiron here, is always a problem, because Chiron in Aries is always like being violated, or someone enters in your life and you feel that someone is coming and intrudes to your own personal space. Or sometimes we may feel that we need to overcompensate, or we're trying to attempt to do everything in our life. So especially for the people that have planets around the 2nd, 3rd and the 4th degree of Aries, Cancer, Libra and Aquarius, you may need to stop and think if you need to do whatever you want and try to make a priority of what is important for you. Also, this Chiron in Aries is always an opportunity to become a pioneer. You have to look your own natal chart, of course, in order to understand when and how you can become a pioneer. You have to search your house, and you have to search also the aspect this Chiron from the 3rd degree of Aries is forming with your natal chart. If this Chiron is in the 1st, then you need to push yourself and show yourself to the society. If this Chiron is in the 2nd house, you may need to adjust and change the way you deal with your everyday financial matters, but also about the how you conceive yourself and how you understand yourself, or change your own self-worth. In the 3rd house, you may need to change and adjust the way you are communicating with the others. While in the 4th, usually it's a signal, it's a message that you need to cut cut everything that bonds you with the past, with the family, that you need to go forward. In the 5th house usually means that you need to be creative and you need to trust yourself in order to change your way and your life. Chiron in the 5th always means that you can do something about yourself by trusting your inner gut and be more creative, which is always very fascinating when you're doing things. And then this is always this Chiron in the 6th. And this Chiron in the 6th means that you need to understand your own limitations, and through the understanding of the limitations of our body, you need to change what you're doing in your everyday life in order to succeed. At the 7th house, in the 7th house, Chiron is always brings new relationships, new kinds of ideas with other people, and new kind of cooperation with others. But at the same time, you may feel the need to stop a relationship that may be abusive to you. In the 8th house is usually a problem about sexuality or about painful experiences of the past, or you may have to deal with your fears. When Chiron is in the 8th, there is a possibility of being in fear of something, and you need to deal with those fears in order to become better. Or perhaps you may be in a path of becoming a healer in your life and helping other people. In the 9th house, perhaps you need to change things about your education the next 3 months, and you may try to understand what really is important to you, what really is great for you. And of course, what is really important when we're looking at Chiron in the 9th is perhaps the need to change your own philosophy, your own way of thinking. Also, Chiron in the 10th is very important for the next 3 months, because it may tell you that you need to change your profession, or how you are dealing with your parents, or how you're dealing with the society. And perhaps society is pressing you very much, and this pressure needs to be changed, or you need to change how you react to this pressure. On the 11th house, this Chiron always needs to change things about who you're having fun with and how you're accepting love and emotions by other people. It is of great importance to understand what is fundamental with you and change other things or people that they have nothing to do with you anymore. Because people, we progress, we change, we develop, and perhaps some old friendships or relationships we may have are no longer important for us. Finally, Chiron the 12th means that you are in a womb, a spiritual womb, and through this transformation you are going to change your own life and how you deal with everyday things. But on the same time you may feel a little a reciprocation about things, but you need to act and you need to change and you need to fight and not always reciprocate and not stalling yourself of not doing things. As we said, this autumn equinox is great because also influences a lot of people on the second decade of Aries, Libra, Cancer and Capricorn. There are about 3 planets, and we have also North Node. There are about 4 planets, although North Node is not a planet. That means that for the second decade of the cardinal signs, this is an autumn equinox of great importance. Of course, you have to deal with your past, you have to deal with your family, you have to deal with your inner wounds, with how you deal with your own self. If you believe to yourself, if you believe that you can be happy and you can really do what is best for you. Also about healing yourself and understanding that by doing the best for you is also the best for your friends, the best for your family, the best for everyone. Also, sometimes we need to understand that the beliefs we had from our parents may be the limitations and the bondages of the past that they do not allow us to be happy. You know, sometimes it's not about our parents, our current parents. It's about the parents we were or our adolescents, on when we were children. You know, things that they were telling are always affecting us through our subconscious. Sometimes even when our parents are lost, we have their ideas and their way of thinking within our brain, and we are not really free because we are always having this kind of influence from our parents because they live inside us, they live inside our brain. So this specific configuration, this specific G-square speaks for us in order to change and understand what we really want and not what our parents want in our life, in order to become really free. This is what Uranus wants also from us, the order to become free and change and develop and understand. And don't forget also that the closest aspect of the moon is with the fixed star called Canopus, which is the pathfinder, is usually a very important fixed star if you really want to find a new way on dealing with your life. The pathfinder, the finder of our true way of thinking, of our true life, of what is really important to us. And at the same time we know also that the North Node is very close to Sirius, another important fixed star that has to do with brilliance, has to do with the believing of our own brilliance and how we can change things in our life. What I think is of great importance is that we are going to have a lot of problems in various regions of the earth. If we look at the locality chart, we are going to see a lot of problems, but I'm going to talk about what happens to the United Kingdom Ireland borders. If we look at this autumn equinox, we are going to see that this Pluto is on the IC. So we all know, if we're looking back in the history, that the borders between Ireland and Northern Ireland are very sensitive, and right now in this autumn equinox this Pluto is directly conjunction with the IC, and this is not a good stuff. This may bring some severe problems for the situation around, and we know that United Kingdom decided to do the Brexit, but we also know that the other states that form United Kingdom, except from England, are really not into leaving the European Union, something that may needs a lot of discussion and may arise severe problems. Also, Boris Johnson, we know that he decided for the Great Britain to do the Brexit on the 31st of October. And we know as astrologers that in the 31st of October, Mercury is going retrograde, which is, of course, really funny if we talk astrologically. But I would like also your comments. I would like also your way of thinking, of dealing things, and how you can really you see all these matters around this autumn equinox chart. If you look also at the chart of the autumn equinox, we are going to look at this Venus and Mercury being on the midheaven for Pakistan-India borders, which is also a very tense region around the globe. And at the same time, you can see the same planets being on the IC in the United States. So there may be some problems that are going to be arise also to United States. And if you're living in the in the center of United States, in the central time of United States, you may feel a more push or a more tense from the planets, because the autumn equinox is forming with the axis of the midheaven a direct conjunction around this region, which is always very sensitive. But also, if we can look also at Japan, we can also see this Jupiter forming a conjunction with the midheaven, which I think it is of great importance to the recent changes they are going to have in Japan, at least for the next 3 months. As of Europe, I think the only tensions are going to be around the UK-Ireland borders, and also the Spain, Portugal, perhaps borders, but the countries are not having any kind of conflict between them, but there may be some kind of difficulties around these regions, perhaps around the environment. Also, what is, I think, great if we look at Uranus. Uranus is on the midheaven, also close to Chicago, is also around the IC, close to Mongolia and Calcutta. That means that also these regions may have more intense events the next 3 months, because the autumn chart, the autumn equinox chart, is usually affecting us for much more time than just a month. About the month the sun is on the sign of Libra, which is also very important. Also, we are now going to talk about how this October is going to affect and what are the major events in this month. You can always ask in the comments, and you can also give your feedback about how you felt this month, or about how you believe is going to affect you this month. It is, of course, a very different month. It's not a month like in the rest of 2019. It is a unique month in its influences, and is going to affect us a lot also in our relationships. And this, I think, the most and the biggest problem that we have to deal with. But looking at the most of the planets for the October, what I think is of the greatest importance is that there is a lack of understanding between people, and this may bring some conflicts again. We can start from a very Plutonian start of October. We have Venus having a square with Pluto around the 20th degree of Libra Capricorn, 2038 degree. We have also Mercury entering Scorpio in the 3rd of October 2019, and also we know Pluto is going direct. So at the start of the month we are having a severe important message from Pluto, a message of transformation, a message of doing things, but also a message of having crisis, or dealing with financial situation or with power struggles. And we know that there are several states, several countries around the world right now that may have a lot of problems from this Pluto position. And then we have these Saturnian aspects. If we look at the chart, Saturn is going to form at least 2 squares during October. Sun is going to form a square with Saturn on the 7th of October, and Mars is always going to also going to have a square with Saturn on the 27th of October. At the same time, we know that there are several planets that are going to have an opposition with Uranus. Mercury is going to have an opposition with Uranus at the 7th of October. Then we have Venus having an opposition with Uranus at the 12th of October. And finally, we have the Sun forming an opposition with Uranus on the 28th of October 2019. All these aspects usually tell us about conflicts, about severe obstacles. And we know that this transiting Sun having a square with the transiting Saturn always means problems in having control in our own life, and we may deal with severe limitation this month, and also we may have some delays, or sometimes we may feel a lot of insecurity while our ambitions may be very hard to get. At the same time, at the end of the month, we have this Mars at the 27th of October forming a square with Saturn, something that usually brings restraint, and there is perhaps a problem with injuries and anger and problems with having self-control. And we know that these oppositions with Uranus are not very easy, because at the 7th of October, while we have the Sun having this square with Saturn, at the same time we have Mercury forming an opposition with Uranus, which is always meaning a tension between people, and there is mental tension, but also we need to be very careful in driving and not being very radical in our views, and we need always to respect the other's opinion. On the 12th of October 2019, we have this Venus forming an opposition with Uranus, something that always brings a lot of excitement, but also problems with our personal relationships and a kind of rebellion and unstable emotions. And at the 28th of October, while Mars is going to form a square with Saturn, Sun is going to form an opposition with Uranus. So we are having also a very great change in how we are going to deal with the things, especially at the end of the month. So we know that in the 27th, 28th of October 2019, we are going to have this Mars having a square with Saturn, and we are going to have this Sun having an opposition with Uranus, something that also gives us a lot of information about pressure and a lot of difficulties that they are going to be very difficult to deal with them, because there will be much anger and also need to be the strong one and the one that is going to be the right one, and there are going to be severe conflicts between people. But also there are some good news. There is always some good news. The good news is that this Neptune is going to form on the 15th and the 21st of October the trines with Mercury and Venus. Always a signal of peace and an ability of dealing with things without being very negative to the others. But also at the same time, I think it is great to see this Mars. This Mars in Libra may be provocative, but is not very direct. His Mars in Libra is not attacking. He is very manipulative. So perhaps we may try better to look when Mars is going to enter in Scorpio, because all this power is going to be unleashed when this planet is going to Scorpio sign. But for October 2019, all this energy is going to be blocked because this Mars is in Libra, a sign that is not very well placed and is not very easy to show his anger in a constructive manner. But we are going to have accidents and other kind of problems. Also, this October is going to be very Plutonian, so if you are into doing business, if you want to change your things in your life, if you want to transform, to develop as a person, to get out of a prison, to destroy something from your past, and also if you want something to be changed finally in your life, this is the correct month. This is the month of the opportunity of dealing things and changing things in your life, something that is always of great importance when we have to do with how we deal with our own selves, because this Plutonian energy is very good in dealing with things, transforming and also understanding our own selves. Also, in 14th of October and 20 of October, we are having these sextiles of Mercury and Venus with Saturn. Very constructive sextiles, and they are going to affect a lot Scorpio, Taurus, Capricorn, Cancer of the second decade around the 13th to 15th degree of these signs, which is always a great aspect when you want to start things, or maybe you want to deal with things, or maybe you want to discuss with someone and find a solution. But also if you want to sign something important about your job. This is the main character and situation that we are going to deal for this month. But let's go to the last subject we are going to talk today, and this is about the importance of the sect, of the importance of the natal chart, if it is a day chart, a diurnal chart, or a nocturnal chart. First of all, we have to understand the position of Sun. If Sun is in your chart between the 1st and the 6th house, then that means that you are a night chart. If your Sun is in the 7th to the 12th house, that means that you are a night chart, a day chart. When someone has a day or a night chart, this is of great importance. The ancient Hellenistic astrologers were saying that in a day chart, the planets that they are happy are the Sun, Jupiter, and Saturn, and in the night chart, the planets that are happy is Moon, Venus, and Mars. When you are having a day chart, the best planet for you is Jupiter, and the worst planet for you is Mars. And when you are having a night chart, the best planet for you is Venus, and the worst planet for you is Saturn. This is of great importance when you are going to deal with what happens to your natal chart. For example, let's say that you are having a Sun having a square with Saturn, but this square is in a day chart. Then, although you may have this problematic square, Saturn, because it is in a diurnal chart, and Sun also is in a diurnal chart, is going to bring the best of this square. So don't judge things just because you are seeing a square or an opposition. The aspects are not signs of something going bad or good. They are the way that our consciousness works within with ourselves and with our environment. That means that when you're looking at square, there is a frustration, but this frustration may lead to success, may lead to a great success or a honor to your life. At the same time, may bring also disaster. But the square by itself is not a big problem. You have to understand if the planets are positive and or negative, or if they are working around the sect well, because Saturn in a day chart is not so bad. But let's do another example. Let's say that, for example, we have this Mars having a square with Mars, Sun having a square with Mars in a diurnal chart. This is going to be a very difficult square because Mars is the worst planet in a day chart, and that is going to bring a lot of tension, a lot of problem, and there is maybe some problem with anger and aggressiveness, or you may be the enemy of yourself, something that sometimes need to be refined. Also, we all know that Moon is in a very bad position in Scorpio, but if it is a nocturnal chart, this Moon is going to be very constructive. You are not going to feel very bad, and this Moon in Scorpio is not going to bring only problems, it's going to be very positive in your life. Understanding a sect in a chart may bring you a lot of information about what is the real problem in your life. I know clients and people that work in astrology for many years, and for example they believe that their problem is their Saturn. We are always try to make this Saturn be the devil, but there is an old book by Liz Green, a new look at an old devil. We all know this book. So sometimes we try to convince ourselves that the problem is Saturn, but Saturn may not be the problem, especially in a day chart. The problem may be other planets. Let's say, for example, that you have a Venus in Taurus. Venus in Taurus, we know it's a very good position, but in a diurnal chart, this positive situation, this positive placement is not going to help you, as it was going to help you when this chart is nocturnal. Always you have to deal if the planets are diurnal or nocturnal, because it is going to change the way you interpret yourself. I'm going now to show you a chart of a person, which I think it is always great to understand what really happens. And we are going to talk about sect, and I think we are going to find it very fascinating and interesting. This is a Greek chart, and that's why you're going to see Athens, Greece as a position. Okay, the only thing I need is to show you the chart, so I need just a minute. Wait a minute, please. Okay, let's see. Okay, I think you can see now the chart instead of me, which is good because I don't want you to see myself right now. I want you to see the chart. And in this chart, this person is having a diurnal chart because the Sun is on the 10th house, and of course, as you know, he was born at 12 p.m. So this is a day chart, okay? You don't need to think about it a lot. This Sun is having a conjunction with Venus and a conjunction with Mars. And he also has, he was always speaking about this Saturn being in Aries and is not in a good position because Saturn in Aries is always a problem. And I understand that Saturn in Aries is not a good position and there may be a problem in life, but this is a diurnal chart, so this Saturn is not really so bad as my client believed. On the other hand, he never understood that this Sun conjunction with Mars is the main problem in his life, especially his emotional problems were severe. He was having a lot of simultaneous relationships, he was never very faithful, he was very aggressive, and he was into alcohol, and he was always pressure himself, he was always
pressure in his own way. And of course, he couldn't understand that this Mars was a problem. Of course, that is always a problem with planets being in combustion, because they are in combustion, so you cannot see them by yourself. You need someone else to tell you that, you know, my friend, the problem is this Mars you cannot see because it's at the center of your chart and it is burnt and you are using him in a very bad way. And also we know that in a diurnal chart, Mars is the most negative planet, and this conjunction for him brought him accidents and various problems. And when I say accidents, I'm talking about losing also very important people from his life, because this Mars is ruling his 8th, and we have this Saturn conjunction with the node, which is also very hard in people and losing things from people from his life. But he could not understand why always he was having this kind of tense and anger, and he knew that through this kind of traits he was having from this Sun and Mars, he was losing people around him. So we were having a great discussion. What I always believe is that yes, traditional techniques work, but that doesn't mean that you cannot change your chart. Usually traditionalists, people that they just look at the traditional methods, believe in fate and that you cannot change things. I use traditional techniques, but I'm a modern astrologer. I believe that we can change things. So what we have done is that we worked through psychotherapy and we try to understand why he was having all this anger in his life and why this aggressiveness was making him even more self-destructive. And of course you can see that there was a square between Mars Sun with Pluto, because Mars was bringing the Plutonian energy to the Sun of the person, something that was always brings a lot of passion but a lot of self-destructiveness. Because if you look closely, also Venus is in a very bad position, and we have this stellium of Venus, Sun and Mars, and Sun is forming a bridge between Venus and Mars. And Venus is also the ruler of the second house, the house of self-worth. But this Venus is also combust. And according to, if you look at the chart closely, we have this trine of learning, this medium learning triangle, if you're into Huber astrology. And the problem is always the in conjunction, the things that you need to learn. And this in conjunction is not just an in conjunction, it's a yod. And we have a yod with the apex planet being Saturn, and we have the yod of Saturn, Pluto, Uranus and Neptune. So this was a really self-destructive chart. And if you don't know, yods that they have apex, the Saturn, are always the hardest, the most difficult, and we need really to deal with those yods in a very delicate manner and way, because the people are really not loving their own self. Of course you can see other things in this chart that are going to bring you a lot of information, but what is of the greatest importance here is that while he was trying to understand his chart through various ways, he couldn't see that this Mars was the real problem. His aggressiveness, his way of thinking, that he was very, very not into the point in anything. He was changing jobs every day. He was not in any specific situation. He was not dealing with things. He was afraid of taking opportunities of his life, and he was always in an eternal changing in his relationship, in his job, in every kind of his relationship. And he was just about the heat, about sex, about passion, but nothing permanent. He was afraid of anything that may be permanent, and he was really alone. So, this simple technique of understanding your sect can help you a lot in understanding when a planet is really a problem in your life or when not. So, I'm not going to take more of your time. I think that for the first day that was already a lot. I hope you really liked the first podcast. The next podcast also they are going to speak more about various techniques of modern and traditional astrology, but also we are going to speak about what is going to happen every week in our life and the important aspects that are going to be formed. And don't forget that once every month we are going to have an interview with another astrologer that I'm sure you are going to like it. Again, thank you very much for your time, and sorry for my English. I know they're not perfect, but they're going to be perfect later on. Thank you very much for your time, and I hope you are having a good day, night, afternoon, midday, whenever place you are now live from and you are hearing me. Bye bye, and see you in the next Monday, 5 p.m. Central Time. Thank you.